Good evening, everybody. Hope all have joined, and I warmly welcome you to Getting Started with MERN. I'm Nutu Jamapa, and I'll be moderating today's session. Getting Started with MERN is brought to you by the MS Club of SLIIT in collaboration with SCSC of SLIIT and CSSC of SLIIT. MERN is one of the most popular tech stacks today, and in my opinion, it gives the necessary understanding of libraries and frameworks of JavaScript, and about document-oriented databases with the use of MongoDB, which is a bit different from the relation databases which we are accustomed to. In today's session, we hope to address the basics of JavaScript and how to make a backend with MERN. Before we move into today's session, we have few distinguished individuals who are present here to share their wisdom with you. First is Dr. Nwan Kodago, Head of Department of Climate Software. What you sir?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So thank you very much for the opportunity. Good evening, students. So I warmly welcome you also to the MERN Stack session that we are going to have. In fact, we will be having two sessions. So I want to take this opportunity to thank MS Club, the SC student community and other communities for organizing this MERN Stack bootcamp, if you would like to call that. I think you might already know that the MERN Stack is one of the hottest technologies in the current job market, and there are a lot of opportunities for software engineers who know the MERN Stack. And joining today's session, I believe we have mainly third-year students doing the SLIIT software engineering degree. Also, I think we have 13 students who are following the third year. And I believe there are also second-year students who are doing ITP as well. So let me warmly welcome you. So when it comes to the content for the software engineering third-year students, you do application frameworks, and MERN Stack is one of the things that you learn. But that is the academic learning, but participating in a boot camp like this, you can get an overall idea and a more practical sense of the content. So I really warmly welcome you being here. And 13 students, of course, have been asked to learn about MERN Stack and other related technologies. So you will need it actually for some of the subjects that you're doing. And we, of course, warmly encourage the second year ITP students to use the MERN Stack as well. One of the things I just want to tell you is that you really become a programmer only if you try things on your own. So always, now it's very easy to learn things looking at YouTube videos or maybe some tutorial. But I think one of the things that you have to learn as students and when you go to the job market is to learn how to use the official documentation. So if you're using React or MongoDB or whatever the technologies, try to learn how to use the official documentation when you are learning a new technology. That's really important. The reason why I'm saying that is there are so many multiple ways of doing the same thing. And you need to understand fundamentals that are there in a given area of technology. And this is so true when it comes to this JavaScript frameworks like React. Each organization, each project might have a slightly different way of writing code in the MERN Stack. So I can actually share an experience like at SLIIT, we have this unit called the Industry Engagement Unit, and we undertook a project for a large company to develop a code using the MERN Stack. And we had a few people actually who had worked in the industry as well, who had some experience in React, but they took over 1 month to adapt to the kind of coding style and the approach that was used in that particular project. So it was a project where we had to modify code and add new code. So what I'm trying to say is like, although you learn MERN, there are lots of different ways of writing code. And if you know the fundamentals, then you can easily migrate to any particular style of code that you have to write. And also, like when you are writing code, remember that if it's for a real project, even if it's for an assignment, someone has to if it's an assignment, it'll be reading. But if it's a real project, your fellow programmers or software engineers who come after you will have to maintain your code. So think about readability when you write code, and don't try to use clever hacks which are not widely used. There are some hacks that are used in React and JavaScript. You can use those like if they are widely used, but don't come up with your own ones, because then your readability kind of suffers. So I hope this will be an excellent starting point for you to explore the MERN stack. So that idea of a boot camp is to get started. But students, like, this is just the beginning. So I strongly encourage you to, of course, come for this today's session and then also attend tomorrow's session. But what I want you to do is like dig deeper. You have to try things on your own and explore things on your own. Read the documentation, and I hope all of you will become experts in the MERN stack. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mohan Kodaguru, sir. Today's session conducted by Jayadeva, 4th year software engineer undergraduate at SLIIT and intern software engineer at Pearson, along with Rusiru Abhishek, 4th year software engineer undergraduate at SLIIT and associate software engineer at React Global. Before we start the session, I'd like to mention some stuff. At the end of the session, there would be a Q&A. Please use the Q&A section provided to put your questions and doubts so we can bring them up during the Q&A session. Over to you, Aya.
Hello. Yeah.
Hello, sir, we can hear you.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Okay. Can see the screen as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, guys. I'm not able to like turn on my camera, so because there is a power cut. But anyway, like let's get started. So yeah. Okay. So MERN stack workshop, right? So this is the first day of MERN stack workshop. So let's get started. So so first of all, I will introduce myself. I'm Rusiru Abhishek. I'm currently 4th year software engineering undergraduate, and I'm the development lead of MS Club. And currently, I'm work as associate software engineer at Red Global, and I'm also a Microsoft Learn student ambassador. So yeah, that's enough of me. So let's focus on the today's agenda. So basically, in the first couple of minutes, we will talk about the JavaScript fundamentals. The fundamentals means the like essential stuff that you need to learn before you start implementing applications using MERN stack, which includes like the arrow functions, promise, and asynchronous functionalities. So along the way, like I will be explain variables and those kind of things, because those are the variables, if else conditions, and like for loops. Those are like fundamentals for all of the programming languages. So I hope you are familiar with Java. So it is really good start to like learn this MERN stack technology, because entire MERN stack is built based on the JavaScript language, right? So these are the three main parts that we first focus on as the fundamentals, and then we can start implementing our MERN stack application, right? Okay, so first we will talk about the arrow functions. So in JavaScript, there are a multiple way to implement functions. So in Java, I will be compare most of this stuff with Java, because I hope you are mostly familiar with Java. So in Java, in order to implement a function, we first like give the return type of the function, and then we give the name of the function, and in the brackets we will give all the like parameters, and in between the curly brackets we will implement the necessary code logic, right? So that is the approach in Java. But when it compares to the when it comes to like JavaScript, in order to implement a function, we need to give the function keyword. So this is how the JavaScript understand. Oh, okay, this is a function, so we need to give the function keyword, right? And then we need to give the function name, and rest of the things are similar, like brackets. In between the brackets we can pass any parameters, and in between these curly brackets we can implement the necessary code logic, right? So this is pretty much simple, like you give the function keyword, and then the rest of the things are pretty much same. So and except here you can see there is no return type. So we didn't specify any return type. JavaScript is intelligent enough to automatically detect what is the return type. So it can be a string, it can be a number, it can be object, or it can be array. So it will it will detect what is the return type based on the information that are inside this code block, right? So that is the normal way of implementing a function. And there are so this approach, this first approach, we call it as named functions, right? Because we call this as named function because we know the name of this function, like this is the function is add, right? So then we can call this using this function name. It is pretty much similar to the Java because we just call the function like this, right? It's no difference in JavaScript as well. So we just call this using this function name. So that's why we call it as named functions. So there is a other way around, like which is called anonymous function. So anonymous function is pretty much, the idea is pretty much same, but the only difference is there is no name for this function. So that's why we call this as anonymous function. So here you can see we have the function name like before, but there is no function name, but the implementation and the execution is the same, right? The only difference is there is no name. So without because we don't have any name, so how we can call this function? Because we don't have any name, no? So in one of the, like, this can be, we can introduce as one of the unique unique feature in JavaScript. So the unique thing is you can assign a function into an expression. So what did I say? So basically, in, let's say we have we have a variable, let's say age, like let's say int age equal 20. So that is an expression, right? So similar to that, in JavaScript, we can assign a function into an variable. So this variable then becomes act like a function. So here you can see I have an anonymous function, and I assign this, initialize this anonymous function to an expression, which is called, which is a variable in this case, which is called add. So then this add, the variable add, act like a function. So then we can call this add like a normal function, like this one, right? So that is one of the more unique thing when it comes to JavaScript. So you can assign a function into an expression, right? So all these things, these two squares, so basically these are traditional way of implementing functions, which is still kind of used in some of the projects. And this is the traditional way of implementing a function in JavaScript. But in Java, when in 2015, when JavaScript ES6 version released, they introduced arrow function, right? So in, in as in JavaScript also have versions like Java. So in JavaScript they have ES5, ES6, ES7. So ES6 is released in 2015. So with the ES6 release, they introduced arrow functions. So what is the difference in arrow function when it compares to these traditional functions? So the only difference is there is no keyword called function, right? So here you can see this is an arrow function. So there is a no keyword called function. Instead, we have a arrow. So that's why we call this function as an arrow function. So it is really simple. So I will be implementing this function, then we can run it to understand how this execution works, right? So this is an arrow function looks like. So here you can see we don't have any keywords called function, so we just have an arrow, and rest of the things are same, right? And the main reason the main reason we use arrow function is the simplicity. So it will make the code more readable, less wordy. So here you can see there are so much words like function, keyword, those kind of things. But when it compares to arrow functions, there is no keywords. The programming language level keywords, there is no that kind of keywords. So we can implement the basic logic using this arrow. So let's go ahead and implement an arrow function, and let's try to execute it, right? Okay, we'll open my code. Yeah, I hope you guys can see my VS Code. Can see, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let's.
You can increase the font size.
Yeah, I'll increase the font size. So let's implement a function, arrow function. So first I will declare a function, declare a variable. Let's say print name, something like that. Print name. So this is a normal variable declaration. So then we can assign initialize a function to this variable, right? Let's say an arrow function, and then we can print the name. So this is an arrow function. So this is a function, and this is the variable, right? We assign this function to an variable, right? So then this variable act like a function, right? So okay, so this is a arrow function. So then how we can pass any parameters to this arrow function? So it is pretty much simple. So this is our function. This is how the function look like, and then we can pass any parameter. So in this case, just a name. So inside this code, inside the curly brackets, we can print this console.log, and then let's say name, something like that. So this is how you can implement arrow function, right? So the calling the arrow function, we only need to call this print name variable as a function, right? So then it will execute this function and finally print the name. So then we need to pass the name. So let's say Liam, okay, right? And then I try to run this application using Node. Yeah, Node. Yeah, first I will change the Node arrow function .js. So here you can see it is really simple. It will print the Liam into the console. So this is like a normal function. The only difference is we have a arrow, right? We can implement this same functionality. Let me implement that as well, so you can clearly see the difference. So if we use the traditional way, we need to use the function keyword, and let's say print name, let's say function, let's say right? And inside this one we need to pass the parameter name, and inside this one we can print this name to the console, right? So okay, so then let me print name function, and let's say something like this. If I run this program, so no any difference, like the execution is pretty much the same. The only difference is we get rid of the function keyword in this arrow function, right? So both ways correct, like both way you can implement functions in JavaScript, right? So most of the developers prefer this way to implement because of the simplicity, and but still in some part we need to use these function as well, right? Okay, so that's all about the arrow functions, and yeah, let's moving on. So and also if you guys have any question, just put it in the chat. I will be discuss those questions in later, right? So the promise, the next one. So the promise is it's like this. So I will implement the promise, but it better to have the clear idea what is a promise and how it is executed, right? So in promise we have a producing code and a consuming code, right? So the producing code is the one that take some time to execute. For example, let's say a database connection, right? Establish a database connection. So it can take some time. So which we will call that logic as a producing code. And that the consuming code is the code that wait for a result, right? So let's say you wanted to insert a student information to the database, right? So before insert to the database, you need to establish the database connection. So establishing a database connection, it can take some time, right? So button our consuming code, which is inserting a student information to database, must wait until the producing code provides some result, right? So that's why producing code and consuming code is there, right? Like this promise, the word promise in JavaScript, it is an basic object that actually link the bridge between producing code and the consuming code, right? So there are so many technical words, but I will give a real world example, right? And we will implement a real world example, and you will understand what I'm saying. So let's say you are working on a project, right? Let's say ITP, and you you promise your team to implement a functionality at the end of this week, right? You promise something, so you go and say tell and okay, I will be implementing this function at the end of this week, right? That is your promise. So the promise have two approaches. But the one approach is the promise can be a success one. So you implement the code before the end of this week, and you will provide that code to your team. So then our promise has been fulfilled, so that we can resolve that promise, right? Because that has been completed. So that is one approach, one side. So the other side is you are playing games and you are not like working on the code that much, and you are not finish the code base at the end of this week, which is our promise has been broken, right? So promise has been broken, then we need to reject that promise, because we are no need to maintain that promise when it is broken, right? So then we need to reject it. So that's how the promise thing works. We expect some results, so we expect our result at the end of this week. It can be a success one, or it can be a broken one. So anyhow we expect some results, right? Pass or fail, right? So that's the main like idea of a promise. So let's like implement a promise and then see how this thing looks like, right? Okay, yeah, I will close this one. Okay, right, promise. First I will implement a just normal main function. Let's say const main. I just use arrow function. At the end of this, I will call this main function, right? Okay, we have a function, main function. Think just this main function as a JavaScript main function, right? Okay, so as I said earlier, this promise is an object, right? So object that bridge the gap between producing code and the consuming code. So let's declare a variable, let result, right? So this is how we actually declare variables in JavaScript. So here you can notice I haven't provided any data type. So I just use the let keyword and then provide the variable name, right? And there is another approach, which is a const, which stands for constant. So constants mean this result, or the whatever the value we assign for this result variable cannot be changed. So if you guys familiar with Java, it's similar to final keyword, right? So let, just use let, and then I will like create a promise object. So new promise, right? So this is like similar to Java, right? The promise creating an object. So I hope you know this is stuff like just creating a Java object, right? Similar to that. And this is the constructor, and then we need to pass another function to this constructor, right? So let's say we have a function. This is an arrow function, right? This is a normal arrow function, and into this we need to pass two parameters into this inner function, right? So those two parameters are resolve and reject. So I hope you get a small idea why we use resolve and reject, because when I explained in that previous example, our promise can be a success one or our promise can be a broken one, right? So if our promise is a success one, which is a fulfilled case, we will use this resolve. We will use this resolve to resolve our entire promise. So if our promise is a broken one, we will use this reject to reject our promise, right? Just to get an idea, right? So let's say we have a variable. So then inside this function, you can do normal coding. So let's say let is code implemented. So let's say you implement the code, right? Which is true. So let's say we will check if is code implemented, right? Is called implemented, which means our promise has fulfilled, right? So then we can resolve the case. So we use resolve, right? And then inside this resolve function, we can put we can return whatever we want. But for now, I just return a string. Let's say congratulations, right? Congratulations, you implement the code, right? Smiley face, right? So if you implement the code, this resolve function return this string as a output, right? And then the worst case scenario, you haven't implemented the code, which is else part, then it will reject this promise, right? It will reject. So we can pass any message or any array or anything to this function. But just for now, I will use just a string. Let's say sorry, something like that, right? Okay, this is how promise, right? So in this case, I just use a simple example, but it can be a complex complex code. So I will like display. I will I have some examples. So like a production level application. So I will explain. I will be show you how these things work, right? So then, right, this is the our promise object. Here you can see if you hover over to this result. So here you can see the type is a promise. It can be return anything, right? So how we can get the value, how we can execute this promise, right? So then let's say we have a variable called output, right, which is the output of this promise, right? So it can be a success one or it can be a failure one. So let's say the result, which is our promise, we will first execute this result, right? And then, right, we have a function called then, right? We have a function called then. So we first execute this code base, the inner code base, and then we expect some result. So, and if there is any error, we need to catch, right? So I will be do like this. So this then, the function, this then also a function, right? So this then is always related to this resolve function. So everything is happened in the resolve function, we can access it in here, right? So everything happens in the reject function, we can access it in catch block, sorry, catch function, not a block, right? So in this resolve, you can see I return a small message, which is a string message, right? So then we can access that message inside this then function as using a callback function, right? Message, and then I just use arrow function and I just put console.log and then message, right? Okay, so if our promise was a success one, right, then it will return this congratulation message. Then eventually it will print in this then block, right? And if it is an array, if it is an error, right, then again if this one is rejected, then it will return this string, sorry string. That is also a message, right? So this, no need to put message for everything, but it can be anything, but I just use a message, right? And then finally I will console.log and then give the message, right? So then finally, yeah, we don't need to put any output because we console log everything in here, right? So how this thing execute is, first it will execute this code block, right? So if it is success one, it will call this resolve function and eventually return this string to outside, right? So that that the highlighted message we can access in this then function, right? Inside this then function, we use a console log to print that message, right? And then if there is any error happen or reject, if our promise is a broken one, and then it will use this reject function to return this sorry message, and then we can access that inside this catch function, right? So you may be a little bit confused what is this one, right? So I use a function, and inside this function I pass another function, right? So we actually call this as a callback function. The callback function means the idea of callback is we can pass a function as a parameter to another function, right? So that is the whole idea of a callback function. So here you can see this then is a function, and we pass another function to this then function, which we call as a callback function, right? So I just save this one, and then we can run this program, right? So I just use cd javascript basic. Yeah. So basics, right? And then I just use node and then promise.js, right? Hit enter. So here you can see it will print congratulations, you implement the code. So in this scenario, always this if condition will be true because I just use true, because then it will no longer go to the else statement, right? Because else statement is never going to execute because always this condition is true. So but if I turn this into a false, right, is no code not implemented, so then it should print this sorry message to the console, right? So here you can see it display a sorry, so which is not display, which is not execute this, then it will direct right away in, like execute this catch block, right? So that's how the promise work. But there is a problem in these promises. So when we implement a promises, there is a problem. So let's say we have this then function. So inside this then function, we pass another function, which is we call as a callback function. And inside this function also, we can implement a promise similar to this, right? Just copy this one, and we can implement a promise like this. Let's say let result 2 equal to this, and then inside this also we can have multiple then blocks, then and catch functions, which will never going to end, right? So which will lead us to which we will call this as promise hell. This promise hell means it will not never end until we stop, right? We can implement as many promises as we want, but there is a problem because it will lead us to like reduce the maintainability and eventually reduce the code readability as well, right? So that is the problem of this approach, this then catch approach. So that's why most of the developers prefer the async and await functions. So let me show you a real world production level code, just a function, to show you how this can be a worse scenario, right? So in this case, we just use one then catch. So if I use display this, So here you can see this is just a normal function, right? Right here you can see this function is starting in here, right? This is here you can see this is the promise, and we use then, right? And inside this then we have another promise, and we have a then, and so on and so forth, right? So this function is starting in here and ended in here, right? So let me show you this, right? You can see it's never never going to end. This is actual code, actual production level code. So you can see this is just a one function, and here you can see how many lines it take if we use then and catch blocks, right? That is the problem. So the solution is async and await, right? So which is our last one. So which is this one. So this async and await, basically it's just a keyword, and the async and await makes promises easier to write, right? So in order to implement async and await functions, so this we use async keyword that makes a function to return a promise, right? And then we use await keyword that will wait until promise returns something, right? So let implement this one and then see what this means, right? So currently we have this then and catch, right? Which is not a good solution. So I will I will use a function. I will implement use a variable. Let's say let output equal, and then I will use the await keyword, right? Await, and then I will use result promise, right? So this result is a promise. Here you can see this is a promise which will return something, right? And we will wait until this promise returns something. In this case, it can be a success one message or a failure message, right? Whatever it can be, we will wait. And then what we does is we can just put a console log and then just print the output like this. So it is really simple, right? It just took only 2 lines. Here you can see this take like 1 2 3 6 7 lines, right? We can implement this entire functionality to 2 lines. So that is the amazing thing, is the amazing thing in these promises. And in order to use this await keyword, we need to make our main function as a async function, right? So how we can implement async function? It is pretty simple. So you need to give the async keyword into before starting this parenthesis, right? Okay, so then let's run this program. So I will just for quick, I will comment this code base and then I will execute this function, right? So yeah, I don't know why always this directory is changing. Let's say node promise.js. Okay, so here you can see we have a warning, not an error, just a warning. But our program has been executed, right? So here you can see sorry message is there. If I turn this into a true, right? And then I just clear the terminal. So I run this program. Here you can see in now there is no any warning, right? Because we just get the success scenario. But if we have a failure scenario, failure scenario means any exception or error, we need to handle that exception, right? So let's say this, just make this as a failure one, right? Here you can see if I run this program again, so it will execute the program but with an warning, right? So if we read the warning, so they tell us this error is the error originated either by throwing inside of an async function without a catch block, right? So we just implement this functionality, but if there is any error, we haven't like handled that exception really well, right? So then we need to wrap this entire code block inside a try catch block. Just like in Java exception handling, we need to use a try catch block to wrap this the code block, right? And then if there is any error, we can just put a console log, or you can handle that exception. But for now, I just put a console log if there is any error, right? So this way, even though this result, the promise returns some errors, it will handle, it will be handled inside this catch block, right? So if I run this program, right, you can see there is no warning, and you can see the failure message has been printed to the console, right? So this is how basically like promise and async await works. So the promise, as I said before, before finish. So the promise we have, in promise we have a let's say what, a producing code which will take some time to execute, and a consuming code that will wait until until promise returns something, the producing code returns something, right? And we use promise object to bridge the gap between producing code and the consuming code, right? Like you will like learn, like when you start implementing MERN stack application, you will learn those things really quickly, because as the first time, like in the first time, you these things get really hard. But if you implement one or two like application, this will be like really easy, right? Okay, so that's all about that, the functionalities, the like fundamentals that we need to implement the code today. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to push this code base to GitHub, and then Senura will start implementing our Node.js application, right? Okay, so first I will go to the
Let's
so
create a new one for that. Right?
yeah, you mean like just implement. Okay, then you can implement in your side, Senra.
If you can create a Git repository, and then I will clone that and do the implementation.
Okay,
Just
okay. So
create a
yeah, so this is our organization. So and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new repository. So just right, I just give MERN, let's say backend, and then this is a public one, and yeah, description. Yeah, just create it.
it's at the README file.
Yeah, README file I already add somewhere, so in here. So it will take some time. So why?
Think.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to my VS Code, and I already initialized this code base, so I will just add this to stage this code and just give some small commit message. Commit, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to like commit those changes, right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, and I need to like add the remote, right? I'll just really quickly add this remote URL. Okay, and then finally we can push to our master branch. So just give git push, yeah, git push origin master. So it will start push my code into GitHub. So then Senra can start working on this code base. So it has been successfully pushed. So if I refresh the page, yeah, here you can see this is our like repository with the with the README, and also I include all the necessary like documentation links. So if you want to go further and read. So yeah, that's all for these fundamentals. So then Senura, like you can start from here onwards.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You can see my screen, right?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Yeah,
Your
yeah.
voice is not,
Sorry.
your voice is not clear.
So
What about now?
Yeah, now.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Now we are in the MS Cup GitHub organization, and Rusiru created a new repository called this one, right? MERN backend.
Yeah, yeah. That's all.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is, okay, first of all, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Senura Jayadeva, fourth year software engineer undergraduate at SLIIT, and currently I'm the vice president of MS Club of SLIIT and working as an intern software engineer at Pearson Lanka, and finally Microsoft president and ambassador. So that's pretty much about me. Let's see what is the today's workflow. Actually, today we are going to create in day one, we are going to do the backend part. So I think Sunday, Sunday will create the front end part. So in today's workflow, we are going to create Node.js server, Express server, and then establish the connection between MongoDB and the backend, and then define a schema, then create controllers, routes, and those kind of things. So, sorry, before that, I'm going to clone this project, so we can go to this and copy the GitHub link, and I'm going to clone this desktop. You can use the command git clone. Then we have to paste the repository link. So press enter, and we can see we clone the project already. Right. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to open it in my IDE VS Code. Okay. Right. First of all, what we have to do is we have to initialize our projects, right? So what I'm going to do is open a new terminal. We can use the command npm init. Then after enter, they are asking about the metadata of the project, like the package name. I'm going to keep it default version. I'm going to skip those things. Description, entry point, test command, git repository. It's already added. Keyword, author, license, this stuff. So finally say yes, and then after initializing the project, you can see a file called package.json created. So inside the package.json, you can see the metadata of the project that we discussed earlier: name, version, description, those kind of things. So after creating the package.json, I will now navigate to my slide again. So what is this package.json? So it's the heart of any Node project. So as we discussed earlier, it records important metadata about the project, like name, version, description, those kind of things. So then it defines functional attributes of a project that uses that npm uses to install dependencies, then run scripts and identify the entry point, those kind of things. So then we need something called npm, right? What is this npm? It stands for Node Package Manager. It is the world's largest software registry, and actually in npm has packages that you can use in your apps to make your development faster and efficient. Like in our project, we are going to use like Mongoose as an example. We can get the Mongoose that like we can use that npm package to establish the connection between MongoDB and the backend easily, like using that connect method, and then we can use the schemas and those kind of things. So in our project, we need Express Node package that it is a Node web application framework that helps to create powerful REST APIs. Then we need Mongoose. It helps to enable. Sorry, no, I have to change this. This is cause that this package helps to enable the you. I think you're familiar with access cross origin, right? So it helps to enable access control allow origin headers, and then we need Mongoose npm package that it is also a Node.js framework which help us to access MongoDB in an object-oriented way. Like we have like find by ID, find one to get a list. So we can use those methods using this Mongoose npm package. And I forgot to add another one, .env, that handle the environment variables, and we need something called nodemon. I will talk about it later. Now what we have to do is we are going to again to the VS Code and open a new terminal. I'm going to install the packages, npm packages that as we discussed earlier. So we can install those npm packages using npm install, or we can use npm i also. Npm i mongoose, then we need cause, then we need express, then we need .env, then we need nodemon. It's better to actually install nodemon as a dev dependency. For now, I'm going to use like this. Let's press enter. Then it will take a very small time to install those dependencies. Right. While installing those dependencies, Rusiru, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, if you can, like, there is another package manager called Yarn, which is really fast. And if you want, you can use that as well, like the Yarn package manager. That is same as the the Node.js Node package manager.
Okay, we successfully installed the Node packages that we want. Then let's go to package.json again. So you can see under dependencies, core.env express mongoose shown as here with the version. Yeah, with the version. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to create a file called server.js. And here we are going to basically do the like the start the server, and uh, like the uh, like the establish the connection between MongoDB and backend server, those kind of things. So first of all, what I want to do is I'm going to import that the dependencies we installed earlier. So to do that, I'm going to first declare a constant variable called express. Then we are going to import that node package using require keyword. Then we have to as the parameter we have to mention the express package. So I'm going to do the same thing for mongoose cause and .env. So let's create a constant variable again for mongoose. Then require, we have to mention the mongoose package. Then do the same thing for cause. As the cause, then we need what? Then
Yeah. If we can Senura, we can import that .env as well. So if we using environmental variables.
env, then config that
Yeah.
for now. Okay, then we are going to initialize the express. So I'm going to create a constant variable called app, and I will assign the express to this app variable, app constant variable. So from this part, we can use this app variable to like use the methods in express like app.use, to start the server. We need we can use app.listen method. So those kind of things. So after assigning express to app constant variable, we can use. We have to pass course here. Then we need to, I think you already know, here in this backend we are dealing with the JSON format with the data, right? So we have to enable it. So what we are going to do is app.use. Here we have to pass the express.json. So it tells that we are dealing with the JSON response and request. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the server. So to do that, there is a method called listen. So app.listen method, we are going to call the listen method. Inside that, we have to pass the port number. For now, I'm going to hard code this like 5000, and there is a callback. So we can here we can mention if the server is starting successfully, we can output a console message. So console.log. Here we are going to do something like the server is starting on 5000. Right. I think all good. I'm going to right. So now what we are going to do is we are going to see whether our server is running or not successfully. So open the terminal again. We can use node server.js. So if the server is running successfully, you can see a message like this. So I'm going to close this again. And now what I'm going to do is here we hard coded the port number, right? So it's not a good practice. So what we are going to do is we are going to declare constant variable called port. And here I'm going to do something like this: process.env.port or 5000. So this is really important when we are like deploying an application, deploying our backend to like something like Heroku, Azure, or something like that platforms. So what we are doing here is think there is an environment variable called port. Then what will happen is that environment variable will be assigned to this port constant variable. If there is not an environment variable called port, then 5000 will be assigned. So I have to replace this port constant variable to as the first parameter. Right. Now let's run the code again. Node server.js.
And so one of the main reason that Express and this MERN stack become so much popular, here you can see you can up and running an entire server within 15 or 14 lines of code. So this is just the entire
actually,
server.
For starting the server, these things are not necessary.
Yeah.
This
necessary.
one and this one need, and this one. Yeah.
Just
like
five lines of code.
Lines.
Yeah. We can start the server.
Okay. Now what we have to do is we are done. We are successfully run the Express server. Now what we are going to do is we are going to establish a connection between Mongo and our backend server. So to do that, first I will go to MongoDB cluster. We are using MongoDB Atlas. Let me go to. Actually, Rishad or Rusiru or someone can share the links of MongoDB and Mongo's documentation, Express documentation. It will be better.
Yeah.
I'm going to sign
So
in.
like all the links are actually in the readme files, and so if anyone want to if you want to MongoDB Atlas and download the MongoDB Compass, all the links are provided in the readme file. So you can go to our organization MS Club State and then get all the like necessary resources. Right.
Now there should be a power cut. Now,
Yeah.
okay. Right. Now we are in the Mongo at Mongo Atlas dashboard. So we are not going to create a cluster again. So it will take some time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show some database access configuration. So in order to use the MongoDB cluster, Mongo cluster, you have to create you have to create a database user. So you can simply click here and I will show you. Then you have to put a username and a password. Then you have to do some configuration. Then easily you can create a database user. Then you have to configure this thing also, network access. So if you are doing your project with 7 or 8, it's better to allow from anywhere for IP address. So after deploying it, you can change this thing, because if someone put his IP address onto this, then others can't work. So they have to add all the IP address of all the members. It's not a practical thing. Also, when developing your ITP or your third year projects, it's better to allow from anywhere to this network access. So okay, that's all about the database access and networks access. So then we can get the connection history from this button. You have to click on the connect button, and there is an option called connect to application. Okay, then there's a pop-up. So in this one, you can use what shows Node.js, PHP, and the version. And then here you can see the connection history. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this thing, and it's better to have an environment. It has an environment variable. So I'm going to create an .ini file, and here I'm going to declare environment variable called Mongo URI. So I'm going to paste the Mongo connection history. So here we have to put the password. Yeah, I think this is the correct one. I'm not wrong.
And guys, when you use these environmental variables, if your project repository is public one, don't put these environmental variables to everyone, because if you put this environmental variable, anyone can access your resources, database, storage servers, email servers, all those kind of things. So that's why most probably when you create this environmental variable, it's better to add that to the Git. No, yeah.
Sorry, not GitHub. To
ignore. Yeah.
So,
Hello. So I guess there is a power cut.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but network
Yeah,
connection will.
like, yeah, he will connect, like, just give us like 2 or 3 minutes. So,
So, dear participants, I request you all to post all your questions in the Q&A tab so we can answer your questions.
yeah.
Uh, yeah.
And Shivani, if there is a questions, just tell us. So, yeah,
Yeah.
we will look into it.
Yeah. So, I think.
Yeah, Senura.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I think you can see my screen again, right? Hello.
Yeah. Can see
Okay.
and hear you clearly. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. What we discuss about the environment variables, right? Okay. Here, as Rusiru mentioned, please put environment file in the .gtignore file. So then it will be not exposed to others. Okay. Now in the Rusiru, I think I'm audible, right?
Yeah. We can
Okay.
hear you.
Okay. Okay, in the connection string, we have to do another modification. So here we have to specify the database name. I'm going to specify, rename it as MongoDB. Right, we are done with the Mongo URI. Now what we have to do is we have to get the Mongo URI from as an environment variable here. Right. Let's create a constant variable called URI. Then what we can do is we have to implement something like this process. Me dot Mongo. Right. Now, when we go to documentation, Mongo's documentation, let's go to read docs. So in the connection, all the things are here, right? About if you want to get a knowledge about schemas or schema types, connections, about the queries, all the knowledge in here. So I'm recommending to use the documentation instead of like YouTube channels or something like that, because most of them are now they are outdated, isn't it, Rusiru? Actually, we faced a lot of problems.
Yeah, because that in that time that is the latest one. But in program, when it comes to IT industry, every package is have a new release
I
for
think
every week. Yeah. So
there was a very big update in React.
yeah.
Can you
React
remember?
as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in routes, right?
Routes. Yeah. We actually have that problem when we implement the MS Club project. So that's
Okay.
why keep update with the like uh documentation, as once also mentioned. So
Yeah. So to create a connection between MongoDB and the backend, you can use the mongoose.connect method. So I'm going to implement that. Mongoose. We already imported the mongoose one, right? So mongoose.connect. Here we have to pass the Mongo URI connection string. So we can use URI constant variable, and then what we are going to do is we have to do something like this. Use new answer set things like this. Go.
and by the way, guys, if you are guys wondering what is these keywords, we highly recommend you to like go to the documentation and learn. So
Documentation,
that,
all the things are
and
there.
yeah, and also if you like enable like GitHub, sorry, Visual Studio Code IntelliSense, if you hover over to whatever this like option, you can read the documentation. So itself in the VS Code. So you can use that approach as well.
Yeah. Now to open the connection between Mongo cluster, what we are going to do is mongoose dot connection, then dot once, then as the first parameter.
Yeah.
As a first parameter, we have to give the open, and if the connection between Mongo and backend is successfully, we have to output a message, right? So in this callback, we are going to put a console log.
Yeah. So you can see this is a callback function that Senura is currently writing. So once is a function. So someone is asking, so what is the callback? I guess so. This once is a function. So we pass another function as a parameter to that once function. So we call that as a callback function. So
I think everything is fine with the implementation to establish a connection with MongoDB. Let's try to run it. Before that, I'm going to do some modification in packet.js inside these scripts. Okay, let's that modification. I'm going to use start and explain this what we are going to do in this. So we are going to use node.mon that we installed as a node packet manager server.js. But why we did something like this? Because I don't know, you may identify it or not. So if you are doing a change, like we implement this one, right? So what we have to do is we have to stop the server and rerun it again. So it is a little bit hard, right? So what we are going to do is using this one, if we are going to run this server using node.mon, if we are doing a change, when we are going to save the save our implementation, it will restart our server automatically. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to run this command npm run server. So right. Okay, so we're starting on port 5000 and MongoDB is connected successfully. All right, now we are done with the creating the server and establish MongoDB connection. Now what we have to do is we have to create the model, controllers and routes. So Rusiru, are you there?
yeah.
Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder called models, then another folder called controllers. Then I'm going to create another folder called routes. Right. Inside the model folder, we are going to create another file called employee dot model dot js. Right. Give me some time.
So until like Senura is getting back, so there are a couple of questions in the chat. So I guess some people are confusing like what is the producing code and the consuming code. So until Senura is coming, so I will explain what a couple of questions. So the first one is the can you explain the difference among const, let and var keyword? So basically so yeah, let me just really quickly yeah, Senura, is it okay? I'm just really quickly share my screen.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So yeah. So I hope you guys can see my screen. Right? So let's see.
Yeah, we can see.
Can see, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first question is like, can you explain the difference among const, let, and var keyword? So let's create another one. Variable .js. So in like I said earlier, JavaScript has a couple of versions. So in ES5, most of the time they use var keyword. So still some of the developers use this approach to declare variables. So let's say var, let's say name, Liam. So this is a pretty much standard, right? So we have the variable declaration, the keyword, and then we provide the name, the variable name, and then we initialize a value. So let's say if we debug this code, so I'm not going to put console log for each and everything, but I just use a debugger, so which is easy for me. So if I use Node.js, so here you can see currently our name is undefined. If I step over, so here you can see our the value of the variable name is the Liam. So this is working without any issue. But once developers implement some other projects, they actually find there is a problem with this var keyword. So the problem is we cannot define constants using this var keyword. So let me show you. So let's say we have a variable called pi, which is equal to 3.14, right? So let's say then let's say we have a calculation, let's say console, let's say let calc, something like that, and let's say 2 multiplied by pi, right? And then we have another, let's say we change the calc and then we assign this, let's say let's do like this, let's assign this to this pi variable, right? And then let's say we have another calculation, let's say let calc equal to 3 multiplied by pi. So most probably now you know the answer is wrong, right? So if I go to this point, if I debug this one, so here you can see initially, so our pi value is 3.14, right? Which is the correct value. So then if I step over, so then step over, so here you can see after this line, our pi value becomes 6.28, which is the wrong value, right? The pi should be 3.14, but now we change it. So then we use that changed, which is the wrong value of pi, to this calculation. So if we go to this calc, so he currently undefined. So here you can see we get an answer, but the answer is incorrect, right? Because we change the original pi value, right? So which is that's the problem of having var keyword. So that's why when they introduce ES6, they introduce let and const keyword instead of var. So let's talk about the difference. So in Latin, the way the let keyword works is pretty much same. So let's choose var. The pretty much same as the var keyword, right? So let's say we have a let age equal 18, and let's say if age, right, let greater than 18, right, greater than or equal to 18, let's print, sorry, not print, console log, adult, right? Else we print console.log child, right? Or if we run this program, so let me run this program, node variable.js. So here you can see it will be print adult, because we use a variable called age, and we assign it to a 18, and then if the age is greater than 18, we print adult. So this is pretty much similar to the var keyword. the const keyword, the only difference is const keyword is once you assign that assign a variable, assign a value to a constant, you cannot change it in the later part of your program. So that's why we call it as a constant, right? So for example, let's say like do like this. Let's remove this one. So let's say we have a const called pi equal 3.14, and we do the same calculation, pi equal 2 multiplied by pi, right? So then let's try to run this program first, and then let's see what happened, right? So it will throw an error, right? So here you can see assignment to a constant variable, which we cannot do. If we define a constant, we cannot change the value of the constant variable, right? So that's why they introduced this const keyword. So that's the only change. And one more thing, guys, like if you define a constant like this, and if you try to assign a constant in later, you cannot do like this as well. So here you can see there is a compilation error. The const declaration must be initialized. So the constant keywords, the constant variable must be initialized the place it declares. So that's why you cannot do like this. You need to assign a value when the variable is declared, right? So 3.14. So that is the only like difference between var, let, and const keyword. So I hope you get your answer. So yes, and so you can continue
Sure.
then. Yeah.
Right. I think you can see my screen, right?
Yeah, can see.
All right. Okay, up to now we created a server, then we established connection between Mongo and backend server. Now what we have to do is we have to define the schema type, right? If we go to Mongo's documentation, under the guides we can see schemas. So under the schemas you can see something called defining your schema. So as in the documentation, everything in Mongo start with the schema. Each schema maps to a MongoDB collection, and this part is very important, and define the shape of the documents within that collection. So what here we are going to do is we have to define our schema. So what it does is like it defines the shape of the document. So like, okay, what I'm going to do is now I'm going to copy this thing, and inside the employee model.js file, I'm going to paste it. Right. We have to do some modification according to our project. So this is, we have to replace const.
Because the thing is that import command is a ES7 functionality. Yeah.
Then what we are going to build is something like employee management system. It's a very basic one. Only have like 3 attributes like name, position, and salary. So let's do the modifications. Name, it's the schema type is string. Then position is a string. Then we can have a attribute called salary. For now, I'm going to use number schema type. We have scheme, right? Okay, let's format it. Okay, we define our schema. So it has like 3 attributes like name, position, and salary. Schema types are string, number. So if you have any questions about schema types, you can refer the documentation here. So under the guides, you can see something called option called schema types. So you can get an massive knowledge about the schema types from the documentation. If you have any questions, what you have to do is refer the documentation first, right? Then after defining the schema, let's see what we have to do. Okay, create a model. Okay, as in the documentation, to use our schema, we need to convert our, in our case, it's employee schema. We need to convert our employee schema into a model that we can work with. To do so, we have to pass it to into a method called mongoose.model model method. So inside the model method, we have to pass the model name and the schema. So let's copy this, and I'm going to paste it here and then do the modifications. So we have to pass the employee schema as the second parameter, and here we have to put the model name as employee, and I'm going to change this as employee. Right. We are done with the we are done with defining schema and the model file. So now what we have to do is we have to create the controller file. So in order to do that, before that, we are going to use this one in the controller. So what we have to do is we have to export this module. So module dot exports equals to employee, this one. So okay, now we are done with the model file. Now I'm going to create a file called employee.controller.js inside the controllers folder. So here, as I said earlier, we are going to deal with the employee model, right? So first of all, we need to import that model. So I'm going to create a constant variable called employee. Then we are going to use record keyword to import. Then I have to search this inside models folder. There's the path for employee model. Right. Okay. Firstly, actually, I'm doing the here in the controller file. We are going to implement the business logic, right? Like basically the CRUD operations like add employee, get employees, update employee, delete employee, those kind of methods. So in my part, I will do the add employee and get employees. Then Rusiru will do the update employee and delete employee part. So okay, let's start the process. First, I will create an arrow function called add employee. Then we're going to create okay. Here we are going to pass the request and response. Then okay, inside this add employee arrow function, like from the from the front end, what we are going to get is we are going to request we are going to receive a JSON object from the request body. I think already you are familiar with these things. So because now most of you are in third year, you did the ITP project. So you know what is request body and those kind of thing. So what we are going to do here is now we are going to get the the data like name, position, salary from the request body. So I'm going to do okay, const equal request dot body. What I'm going to do is I'm going to destructuring. So name, position, and salary. Or you can use another method you can declare const name, and you can do something like this request dot body dot name, and we have to do the same thing for the position and salary. So it's like we are wasting a lot of codes for that, right? So we don't need to do that because there is a very easiest way called destructuring. So from this way, you can get easily name, position, salary from the request body. So then after getting data from the request body, what we have to do is we have to create an employee instance, right? Using the employee model that we imported. So I'm going to create a variable called employee. Then we are going to create an instance employee, and here open the brackets, right? Then open curly brackets. Then we have to pass the name, position, and salary. Okay. Right. I'm going to format this one. Right. Now, after creating an employee instance, what we are going to do is we have to save this in the MongoDB database. So in order to do that, I'm going to call the employee variable, and there's a method called save. And then if the saving is success, then we are going to we are going to use a promise, right? Actually, I think yeah, Rusiru, you told about the promises, right? So we are going to then and catch. So inside the then, if the connect employee object created successfully, we are going to get that and return it as a JSON object. So what you are going to do is inside the then, I'm going to get the created employee, and then I'm going to output it as a JSON object. Okay, it's dot JSON. Here we are going to pass the created employee. So if there something went wrong, then there is catch, and here there is an error. Then we are going to output that as the status. Let's add a status code. That one. Then JSON. Here we are going to output the error message. All right, so we are done with the basically we are done with the add employee. Oh, we are forgot to add the async await one. Okay, we discussed those things.
Yeah, actually, Senura, like if we like it's better to have this one, but if you use then catch, you can like omit the omit the sync await.
Going to
I think.
use the then
Yeah.
catch.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Right. Okay, we are good with add employee. I'm going to implement the update, not the update, get employees. And also then we can create routes for those methods. Okay, let's get a arrow function called get employees. Then arrow function. Let's copy those things. Okay. What we are going to do is we are going to we are going to use a try catch. Yeah. Then we are going to declare a constant variable called employees. Then wait. Employee, we are calling the employee model. Really, if you have any question how to know about get the knowledge about these mongoose methods, you can refer the documentation. Under the guides you have queries. Inside that you can see the queries, right? So delete, many, delete, one, find by ID, and find by ID and delete, those all the things. So okay, then what we are going to do is after getting the employees class object, we are going to output it as a JSON object. So press dot JSON, then we are going to pass this And if something went wrong, we are going to and then we are going to output the error. All right. We are good with the get employee and add employee methods. So next thing what we have to do is we are going to create the route for this add employee and get employees methods. So before that, we have to export these commands in order to use those functions in the routes. So what I'm going to do is we are going to export this module.exports. Then here we are going to okay. We are done with the employee control. Okay, we are good, right, Rusiru?
Yeah, just
Okay.
to implement the routes, right?
Right. Now what we have to do is we have to create the routes. So in order to do that, we are going to create another file inside the routes file called route.js. Before going for an implementation, we have to import the express, and in the express we have something called router. There's a method called router, so we are going to use that. So first of all, I will declare a variable called express and going to import the express node package. Okay, right. Now, as I told earlier, we have something called router, right? Router. But this can be changed according to you, because there's not only one way, right, Rusiru? So
yeah. So router and then
router, and what we have to do is express, that called the express, and there we have a method called router. Okay, now what we have to do is we have to create the routes for get employees and add employees. Before that, we have to import the add employee and get employees method from the employee controller. So in order to do that, I'm going to create like this a destructuring. So we are going to require like this from the controller file. Controllers, then here we have employee controller. So we are going to import add employee and get employee methods. And, yeah. Okay, we are good. Right. Now what we have to do is we have to write the code for get employees and add employees. So I'm going to comment understand it easier. HTTP method is get. I think you're familiar with HTTP requests, right? Request types, right? To like get, patch, put, delete. If you are going to like get some retrieve some data, we are going to use like get HTTP request. So to add the data, like mostly we are going to use post and update. You can use patch or put. To delete, like hard delete, we can use the delete HTTP. It will be changed according to the situation and requirement. So okay, here the HTTP request type is get, and the API endpoint will be like this: API slash employee. Oh, what we are going to do is get all employees. Right. To create a route, we are going to call the router dot. Here we have to specify the HTTP request type like get or post or delete or something like that. So here we are going to call the get router, right? dot get. Here we have to pass the as the first parameter, we have to pass the like what should be the endpoint looks like, right? Like here I'm going to pass all, and then here we have to pass the second parameter as the method get. Now we are good with get employees one. Then what I'm going to copy this and paste it here. Then let's do the modification for add the employee method. So this route will be get HTTP post, and here we are going to add and employee. Here I'm going to not all, and okay, sorry, going to format the code. Right. We are good with implementing the routers. So what we have to do is we are going to use this file in server.js and these methods in these ones in server.js. To do that, we have to export the router. So module dot router, module ports equals to yeah. Okay, I think this one is not necessary. Okay, we are good, right, Rusiru?
Yeah, just call that function.
Okay, now what we have to do is we have to do some modification in the server.js. So here we can, okay, here we are going to implement the app use. Here we have to pass the first parameter as the like endpoint, what the endpoint will looks like in the first place. So it will be like API slash employee. Then have to pass the second parameter as the we have to import the employee route as the second parameter. Then routes, then employee route. Okay, I think we are done with the implementation for add employee and get employee. What we have to do is we have to test these endpoints from the Postman. Yeah, okay. Postman is a tool to like you can use to test your endpoints very easily. So there are another tools, but most of the students use Postman. And what are the other tools to test endpoints? I can't remember the name.
In the VS Code they have a Thunder.
Yeah.
Thunder
It's called
so something.
as an extension, right?
Extension, yeah.
Okay. Right. This is okay. I already created a collection before the session. Yeah, this one. Okay. Let's first test the add the employee route endpoint. So here we have to give the endpoint. Then here we can choose the what is the HTTP request type, and yeah, those things. So here we are going to send the our data as a request body. So we have to select the body and then select the row option. Then here we have to choose the JSON. Then okay, let's send the request. Let's see it will be work or not. Okay. 404 API slash employee. Oh, sorry. We have to change this as post. I forgot this one. Right. Okay. MongoDB connected. Let's send the request again. Okay. Now you can see the status is 200. That means the endpoint is the request is success, and here you can see the created object as a JSON output. So I'm going to insert another one. Let's see, Rusiru, Abhishek, right? Abhishek ko Bandar.
Abhishek, yeah.
Abhishek, this spellings are correct, right? Okay,
Yeah.
insert is associate software engineer. Okay, now okay. Okay, right. We will insert the record again. Okay, now you can see it is also success. Yeah. Okay, now we are good with the add employee method, add employee endpoint. Now we have to test the get all employees endpoint. So this is the endpoint as we implemented. Then we have to choose the HTTP request type as get. Now let's see. Right, you can see the inserted records that 5 minutes ago as a JSON output, right? So now we are we done the get employee and add employee part. So Rusiru will continue update employee and delete employee. Before that, I have to push this code to the GitHub. Okay. Wait.
Yeah, meanwhile, guys, if you have any questions, just ask.
Yeah.
There are a couple of questions, so we will ask those questions at the end of this session. So first we will need to like finish the application, then we can ask those questions.
And we are going to deploy this one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What we have to do is, as a good practice, I recommend to like don't push the code to directly to the master branch.
Yeah,
So
there is a like a recent meme
yeah,
yeah.
shared on WhatsApp, right?
Yeah.
As it is, right. So because the production can fail due to an error because
And guys, like if you like those who like this is for like ITP and both dear first semester students. So if you guys working on a project, any project it can be, so there are so much options that by default provided by the GitHub. So you can like restrict the master branch, right? Which means only authorized people can commit directly to the master branch. Other persons cannot directly commit. So which means we need to protect
actually
the
in our
master branch.
organization also MS Club organization also we do that thing. So actually we have a lot of
We have like
developers
actually
right
over
now.
20 developers working on a single repository. So we have a production, development, and staging environment. So we need to we need to secure the master. So that's our like main goal. So
If you like to join me the MS Club dev team, you can apply. So there are a lot of projects going on with JavaScript, TypeScript, Java, and I think from next month we are going to do some machine learning projects also. So if you are interested, you can apply to MS Club development team. We will like practicing you with good with like with you can learn a lot of good practices and development stuff. Right. Okay, let's push the code to GitHub. So for now, I'm going to push the code to master branch. So, but in your projects, don't do that. So it's better to have another branch and make a PR to the main branch. Then other team members can review your code, and if they can recognize some errors, they can request reviews. So yeah, that's the thing. Okay, these are the changes. What I have done, you can see and you can see the node modules and the .env file is not there, right? Because we mentioned it in the .gtignore file, right? Okay, I'm going to give a commit message first. Implemented employee and what the other method is get employee.
Get employee.
Employees methods. Yeah, get employees. Right. Always try to give a commit message as a like a meaningful one, because we saw a lot of students committing their code like 1, 2, 3, or like
Yeah.
there's no meaning. So
Yeah.
always try to do best practices. Okay, I gave the commit message and I'm going to take. Right. Now what I'm going to do is sync changes with the master branch. And here still going on the process. Okay. It pushed to the forward. Let's see. It's okay. You can see the repository is updated. And let's go inside. Okay, you can see the controllers and model files and the other stuff we implemented. Right. Basically my part is over. Now, Rusiru, your turn.
Yeah. So let me share my screen then. Okay. Okay. So I hope you guys can see my screen, and
Yes, Rusiru, you can see your screen.
can see, right? Okay. Let's start. So the let's start means the update and delete because we already start our project. So now if I refresh the page, you can see I got the Senura's changes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to like get this code base into my VS Code, right? So just directly pulling from the master branch. So here you can see these are the like fold changes that Senura worked on. Okay, let's start working on the update and delete functionality. So first, we don't need to like touch anything in this like models stuff, because that has been already created just to work on these controllers, right? Okay. So I will just implement a
Yeah, before that,
function.
guys, if you have any questions regarding the session up to now, you can
Yeah.
ask it on the Q&A section. We will
Yeah, we
definitely
will
answer.
answer those questions at the end, actually. Yeah. So I will create just two functions: update employee, right? And this is also async function because this function will return a promise. And then I will create another function for delete, right? Let's say remove employee. This is also async function. This function take as Senri also mentioned, request and response. Request and response, right? So first we will like mainly focusing on the like update functionality. So right, so first I will test this API. So let's see. So our server is starting on port 5000 and the endpoint is API/employee, right? So I will just do npm install. So because I don't have any dependencies, so that's why I give npm install. It will like here you can see I not installed dependencies individually at this time, because if I give npm I, it will first go through this package.json, and it will detect what are the dependencies that have been like added, and then it will automatically like install those dependencies to your project, right? And then what I'm going to do is npm run start, right? npm run server, which use the node mod. So here you can see there are a couple of warnings. Mongoose error. Yeah, I guess the error is I don't have any .tnv file, right?
.tnv file.
Yeah. So I'm not able to connect to my database because I have like I don't have any like connection URL. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just immediately create a .tnv file, and then what I'm going to do is
We'll put it in the chat box. Okay.
Yeah.
Private. Instead.
Yeah, I will. Okay. Get this, paste it in here, and then what I'm going to do is I stop this server and then start it again, right? Yeah, here you can see now I successfully connected to MongoDB database, and also the service is starting on port 5000. So then only thing that I need to do is I need to copy this path API and go to the Postman, and this is a GET request. Let's say HTTP colon localhost colon 5000 and then slash API slash employee. So this should so this should give me the like all the available employees, right? So why is that? API slash employee. Let's see. Go to the routes. Yeah, need to provide it all, right? Sorry. So here you can see successfully get all the like database documents, and right. All right. So then I know the API is working fine, right? Right. So then we can start working on the update functionality. So then in order to like update, so here you can see we have name, position, and salary. We only have three attributes. So then these information when user go into this function, right? First we need to get all the like information that are coming from the request, right? So let's say first we need to get the ID of the request. So for the so some of you are confusing where is this, how this data is stored. So I'm immediately use this link. I use MongoDB Compass to connect. So which is a like MySQL workbench type application, so that you can view how the like database look like. So here you can see MERN-DB. This is our database, and inside our database we have a collection called employees, and we have 2 employees. Let me zoom this right. Okay, so this is how the documents are data are stored in the database, right? So then what I'm going to do is first we need to get the user ID, right? So user ID is this one. So this is the object ID. So when every time a document, when every time we store something in MongoDB database, it will assign a unique object ID. So just like MySQL, we have a ID column, right? So this is where we can identify each document in the MongoDB database, right? So first we need to get that ID from the request. So first I will create a constant variable called emp ID, right? Emp ID equal this employee ID is coming from let's say in this scenario, this employee ID is coming from the request header, like request as a parameter, kind of like this. So let me show you. Let me like show you the like endpoint and explain, right? So I just copy this one and in here, So I'm not going to worry about this, the type of the request, but just like this. So let's say if I want to like edit this object information, so this is my object ID, right? So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to like paste it in here. So this is the request. This is the request is coming from front end to the back end. So in this request, you can see apart from the like path, like apart from the API path, we have the user ID, the ID of the user in here. So then we need to access this ID. We need to fetch this ID from the URL. Right? So we can do it like this. We can use request.params.id, right? So this is how we can access the ID that is coming from the URL, right? Then we need to find whether this employee is exist or not, right? So then we need to create an variable called const, let's say employee, right, equal await, and then employee dot find by ID, so which is another function, and then we can pass this emp ID, right? So if you like hover over to this functionality, so here you can see it says find a single document by its ID field. So underscore ID, when we go to the database, you can see underscore ID, it will find a particular employee using this underscore ID attribute, right? Then if we cannot do like this. Actually, this sometimes this can throw some exceptions, so we need to wrap this thing inside a try catch block, right? Control V. If we have any errors, let's say res dot status, let's say 400, then JSON, and then error dot message, right? So then if we find if there is any customer, then we can use the if condition. So if employee, right, then if employee, we can do whatever whatever we want, in this case the update, right? But in here, instead of doing like this, first we check if the employee is not, if the employee is not in there, like if in here this is a logical not operator. So in here we check whether employee is not there. If the employee is not there, we need to return this function, and we need to send a response like this, status, let's say 404, because there is a not found function, not found return, and then send, let's say JSON, let's say there is no employee, right? There is no employee, something like that. And then this if block is only execute if there is no employee. So if there is an employee, we can update the value of that employee, right? So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to like access all the attributes that are coming from the request body. So I'm going to use that destructure method equal request.body. So in the request.body, it can send these information, name, position, and salary. And then we can do like this. So we can, let's say, yeah, const employee, let's say emp equal await employee dot let's say update one. So update one also if you want, you can use find by ID and update. If you use find by ID and update, you don't need to like implement this kind of thing, because it will automatically detect where whether employees in like there is not employees available or not. So just I pass the employee ID, emp ID, and then as the second parameter, we need to pass the fields with the values that we want to update. So it can be object. So let me pass the name, position, and salary, right? So this is one way, or you can implement this functionality. And then if the update is success, then we can say rest.status 200 and then JSON and then employee, updated employee is there, right? Okay, so this is pretty much it that we need to implement. So if there is some errors, let's talk about those errors when we get it, right? Update employee, and then I'm going to go to the routes, and then I just use this is a put entry put type API endpoint. So I just use put employee, and let's say /ID. So then get employee, and then let's say router dot put, and then we give the colon ID. So why I'm use this colon ID, because in here you can see I access the like this ID parameter, ID value that is in the parameter, right? So that's why I put it like this, colon ID, and then I can import this one. So update employee, you can see update employee like this, right? So let's try to update. So then if it is success, then we can implement the final one, which is the delete functionality. So we have the endpoint in here, API /employee the ID. This is a put function, and inside the body we choose row, and which is a JSON object. So let's say name, right? And here you can see currently I have this one is Rusiru Abhishek, and then I'm going to remove the first name, and then let's say need to get the position. So yeah, this one, and position, let's say AC. So the position is not yeah, in here it's like this. First it's like this. Let's see what's happened, right? So then the salary, so let's say 50, right? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to like send this endpoint, call this endpoint and send this information. Let's see whether our application is whether it is updated or not. If there is error, we can find what is the issue, right? So let's say npm run server, and it will, yeah, MongoDB is connected. So let's execute, let's send this information. Okay, so here you can see we get the response back. So let's see if we refresh the database, let's see these values are changed or not, right? So here you can see the values are changed, right? Updated. So which means our update function is right. So I think this is one of the first time I write a code and run it, and it will it actually run in the first go.
Yeah, like if you get any like errors, you can like try to debug it, and
yeah.
like if you
Yeah, and for third years actually,
Stack Overflow, these
Hmm.
kind of platforms.
Yeah, I will do some debugging after I like finish this implementation, right? So I hope you get the idea of this the implemented code. So let's finally we will implement this remove employee, right? So okay, and also you can see, let me show you like this. So I will change this ID. I will provide some incorrect ID, and let's see what's happened. So I just remove the 4 and then I just sent it. So here you can see there is a error. So okay, cast to object failed for value, like something like this. Let's see, let's provide a wrong value. So here you can see there is no employee because there is no employee with ID this, right? There is no employee, right? Okay, that's what's happened if the ID is not in the database, right? And finally, let's implement the remove functionality. So it's the delete. As usual, we access users like ID you through the parameter, and you just use const emp ID equal request dot params dot id, and then I just use a try catch block because this can be this will throw some errors, right? And what I'm going to do is I just copy this command, right? And then inside this catch block, first we need to uh, check whether the employee is available or not. Just same as the update functionality, first we need to check whether the employee is available or not, because if the employee is not available, we don't no point of deleting it, right? So similar to previous one, I just use this code block and paste it in here. So in here you can see we declare a variable called employee, and we find that employee by using it his ID, right? And if there is no employee, we just send a message there is no employee, let's say, to remove, right? Okay, and then we need to delete this employee. So let's say we have we have a constant, we declare a constant variable removed employee, right, equal await, and then employee dot find by ID and delete. So what it does is it will basically find the user by ID and then it will remove from the database. So if I use emp ID, that's all we need to provide. And then finally we need to request.status call 200 and then Json and then removed employee. So yeah, this is all we need to implement in removed employee. So pretty straightforward approach, which is first we check whether the employee is available or not. If the employee is available, if the employee is available, then we remove that employee, right? And I add this function remove employee and go to the routes and to comma, and here you can click control space and it will suggest what is the remaining function, right? So I just copy this command like this, and this will be a delete request and then employee slash delete. So then router dot delete and then slash colon id and then remove employee, right? So basically here you can see both endpoints are pretty much same, right? Slash colon id, but this will not throw any errors because in update we use put request, in delete we use delete request. So even though the like endpoint is same, the type is different, so that we can use the there is no problem actually. The problem is like this: if you give put in here as well, this will be a problem. So then the Node.js cannot understand what need to be executed, whether it is employee, update employee, remove employee. So that's why just put delete in here. Okay, so let's try to run the server, and finally we will yeah, try to remove that employee. is 4, and then this will be a delete function, sorry, delete request. So what I'm going to do is no need to provide any request body type thing, just only need to provide the ID. Let's say let's first provide a wrong ID and then let's see what's happened. So let's send this one. So here you can see there is no employee to remove. If I provide the right ID, yes, hit send. So it will give us the removed employee. So if we go to the database and if we refresh it, so here you can see, so my document is gone now, right? So this is pretty much this is pretty much how the application works, the CRUD operations, all the CRUD operations. So and for the third years also this is good. This is good also with ITP people as well. So I will give you how you can debug the code, right? So with the debugging is really important. So most of the time we just put a console log everywhere, which is not a good approach. So let me show you.
Actually, I think like most of the students are not aware about the debugging, right?
Debugging, yeah. Which is if you are for the third years, most of the I guess third years are most of the third year students are software engineering in this
Right.
session. When you go to the industry, don't put any so much bunch of console logs in the code. It will mess up the code really badly. So try to use use debugger. So when you implement run test application, so it is in JavaScript. If you install the JavaScript extension for the VS Code, you will have an icon like this, the bug icon. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a breakpoint in here, and then I'm going to open the JavaScript debug terminal, right? So this is my debug terminal, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to run my application as usual, npm run server. So here you can see the debug is attached, right? Okay, so it's running. MongoDB is also connected. So let's try to fetch all the customers, sorry, not employees. So if I run it, so here you can see the the application, the code is stopped the place that I put the breakpoint. So then if I step over, so here you can see I got the data. If I expand this employee, so here you will see all the document information, right? Senura, and then all the necessary stuff, and there are a bunch of stuff as well, the the global variables, those kind of things. But in this document object, you can see what are the values, and you can see what are the values that have been passed, right? So this is how you can actually uh, like debug the code. So if I stop it, so you can see I just stopped it. So and also for the update, I will just really quickly test you the update. So let's say if you want to just stop this debugging. So let's say if you want to test whether all the what are the attributes that are coming from the uh, coming from the request, let's say. So I just put a debug point in here just to test what is the whether the ID is receiving or not. And then I just put a console log, sorry, debug point in here. So I just open the debug terminal, and then I run the server. And then what I'm going to do is as last, so I'm going to get this ID and then put it in here, right? So sorry, not going to save. So I'm going to yeah, so not this one. Oh, no, this is a put, and then I'm going to send this information, right? So here you can see the debug is still working. That's why we cannot get any responses. So here you can see this debug is attached. So currently the employee ID is undefined. So if I step over, so here you can see this is our employee ID. We can clearly see what is the employee ID instead of putting a console log, right? So here you can see this is our employee ID. And here you can see employee ID is there. So then we go to the next point. So the employee. So then here we just check whether the employee is available. So here you can see employee is available. That's why we're getting employee information. And then go to this area. So currently undefined. Let's step over. So here is still, let's step over again. So here you can see this is my name value that is coming from the request body. If you checked, here you can see, and then step over again. The position is this one, and then finally the salary is 50, right? And then finally you can step over and check what are the values. Like here you can see, instead of, if you put console log for these each and every attribute, you can count how many console log in the code, right? So which is really messy code. So in this way you can clearly see what are the outputs getting and how you can debug. So and finally it will finish the execution. So this is how you can basically debug the code. If you are like you need to familiar with this debugging methodology. If you want to, like, if you are into like software engineering related area. So basically that's all about it, like the update and delete function works. So yeah, so that's all about the backend implementation. So yeah.
Now let's deploy our application, right?
Yeah.
You or me?
You. I
Okay.
forgot the like keywords.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Let me share the screen. Okay, I think you can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay, wait. Right. Okay, let's deploy our oh, before that, Rusiru,
Yeah. I
or,
need to I need to push my code base, right?
okay.
Yeah, I just
Can
really quickly. Yeah. Add update and
you share your screen?
yeah, I'll share. So can you show see my screen?
Yeah.
Can see, right?
Yes.
Okay. Then okay, this is my code. I already stage it. So I'm going to add a commit message, add update and remove controllers, let's say functions, something like that. And then and just give me a second, guys. I just use my uh,
Office
office.
account.
Yeah. uh, so
Okay.
yeah, just really quickly like change it to my personal account. So right. Okay. So just commit these changes and yeah. So I'm directly committed to the master branch, which is not good idea,
Not
but
a good practice, right?
yeah.
You have to
Yeah,
create a
Senura.
branch and create a PR.
PR.
So in
Yeah.
your projects, we highly recommend to follow that procedure.
So,
Okay, I think push the
yeah.
code successfully, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now I will share my screen. Yes. Okay, you can see my screen, right?
Yeah, can see.
Okay. Okay, let's see. Let's refresh the code. Okay, you can see the commit message, add update and remove functions. So actually, for the deployment part, we can use a lot of platforms like Azure, and there is a free one called Heroku. you can in free tier, I think we can create projects up to 5, if I'm correct. So yeah, we can deploy the Heroku Azure. Let's go with Heroku, right?
Yeah, Heroku, which is pretty much easy, like
Pretty much easy.
Yeah.
Okay. You can search it in Google, like type Heroku, and in the search result, you can find the official page. Right. Oh. I can't remember the password. Wait, let me guess.
Yeah, while Senura is logging, so someone is asking like, Aya, in this code, what is producing code and consuming code? I guess you are asking from the code that we have wrote, right? So Senura, just I'll just.
Okay, I will
Yeah.
I will reset the password.
Yeah. While I'll answer the questions.
Sure.
So I hope you guys can see my screen. So the one person asked, Aya, in this code, what is the producing and consuming code? So let me explain. So most of the people actually confuse what is producing and consuming code. So let me go to the controller, and here you can see. Let's see. Let's go to the. Go to the server. Okay. Right. Let's go. Okay. Then here you can see. I'm going to like find the user by ID, right? Find the user by his ID. So this is producing code. This one is the producing code, which is I'm expecting some result from this function, right? That's why I'm calling this as a producing function. I'm expecting some results. It can be a success one or it can be a broken one. So this is a promise, right? So here you can see. Here you can see this will return the customer information after finding by its ID, and then we can assign it to a employee. So it can be a one employee, or it can be an something like the null something. Let's say there is no employee, the value of the variable is null, right? So this is the consuming code. Like, so I'm consuming this employee variable throughout the the update function, right? So I consume. I will. That's why this is a consuming code, and this is the producing code. So I will wait until this send some like results, and then I will use throughout the to implement the rest of the code base, right? So that's the like whole purpose of producing and consuming. But so I know this is a like a promise. So how we can implement a promise, right? So yeah. So that's about that one. So I hope you get how you can identify. So don't need to scared for producing and consuming code. So just implement a normal promise, and it will return the data. Whether the data is success, then it will execute in the try block. If there is any error throws, then it will handle it in the catch block, right? So that's all about the producing and consuming code. So yeah. Senra, are you like okay? Reset.
Give me few
Yeah.
minutes. They are
Yeah.
taking too much time to send.
Okay. So then there is another. Yeah. So there is another question like, what is the difference between MEN and MERN stack? So in the MEN, actually they use the front end as implement the front end using a Angular framework, But in the MERN stack, we use React to implement the front-end application. The rest of the technology stack is the same, right? So that is the difference.
Now, okay.
Okay, right? Yeah.
Right, I will share the screen. Right. Hope you guys can see the screen, right?
Yeah, I can see.
Okay. Okay. First you have to create an account. It's a very easy process, but keep to remember password and those stuff. So, right. First, what we have to do is after logging to Heroku dashboard, we have to click on this create new app. Then we have to give a name for our app. Let's give you backend. Right. Okay, it's available. The app name is available. You have to give an unique name. So then I'm going to click on create app. Actually, I think in free tier, we are allowed to create only up to like 5 projects. So, okay, now under the deploy tab, you can see there is we can create there's a we call deployment method. We are going to use GitHub, and if you want, you can like use a container registry also. And if you want, you can use Heroku CLI. I think you have to install before using Heroku CLI. Okay. After choosing the GitHub, they are asking to connect our GitHub account with the Heroku. So let's click on connect to GitHub. Okay, they recognize my account, and here if there are any organization you can choose. So we created under the MS Club organization, right?
Yeah.
MS Club, we have to choose the MS Club of SLIIT as the organization. Then we have to copy our repository name and give it here and search. Okay, now what we have to do is simply click on connect. All right. Okay, then if we are doing any like like CI/CD deployments, we have to enable it, and we have to choose the branch. So for this one, we are going to use the main master branch. So I will keep it as it is, and then click on the deploy. So let's see what will happen.
And meanwhile, I found a like good example to explain that what is the question. So the producing code and consuming code. So after all these things are done, then I just really quickly explain it.
Okay, I think yeah, it's success. So what we have to do is we have to click on view, then it will navigate to the deployed back. And there's an error. What is the error? Let's see. You can see view logs. You can see the errors logs in here. You have to click on more button and view logs. Okay. we forgot to
Environmental variables, right?
variables. So under the settings, you have something called config bars, right? So in here we have to give our environment variables, otherwise it will not work correctly. So let me wait. Okay, this is the environment variable name. Then we have to give the value. Okay. then add, then right, then we have to redeploy. Let's see, okay. Right, you have to redeploy the branch. Let's see. Install in dependencies, install in node modules. Okay, will success. Pressing. Okay, launching. Right. Deploy to Heroku. Let's see. Okay, now you can see it deploys successfully, but you can't see anything because there is no
root endpoint.
Root endpoint. So Rusiru, can you
yeah, I will directly modify the code and then update you.
And you can see the like the deployment part also.
Yeah,
like, okay, can you share?
Yeah, I'll share the screen. So I hope you guys can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay, can see. Okay, so how you can do a root endpoint is like this. So just go to the server.js and then just give me a this one, right? And in here, before this is like another that endpoints that related to employees, right? So we need to have a root endpoint. So we just use app.get, so which is a get request, and this is the endpoint. And then we have a callback function request response, and then like this. And when user comes into this endpoint, the root endpoint, we need to send this dot send. Let's send just a normal header tag, right? H3 tag, employee management API, right? H3 tag, right? So just give me a second. Okay, so whenever user like come to this root endpoint, it will send this header tag, right? Let's see. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to save it. So and then I'll just right away commit that change, right? So this one. So page, right? Let's say add root endpoint. I just commit those changes. So
let's go to GitHub and show the hello. Yeah, let's go to GitHub.
Yeah, here go to GitHub and I just refresh this server.js file. So here you can see this is our root endpoint, right? So
let's go to the repository. Under the environments, I think you can see.
So what you mean repository?
Let's go to code.
So are you like Senura? Are you sharing?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, you need to share the screen. Yeah.
You can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Go on. Let me see under the environments. You can see. Okay, it's already deployed 1 minute ago. And if we click on view deployment, so here's the thing: we successfully deployed the our backend. So yeah, that's basically it. You can use Heroku or Azure. Azure also very good
really
platform. So but it's not easy like Heroku, but if you can learn it, it will be good for your future as well. So yeah, that's all the thing for this session. Day one.
Yeah, and Senura, can you send that hosted URL so that the next day they can use it?
I will put it in the chat box later. Okay, then let's see test with the hosted one. Okay, I will go to Postman. Let's see it will work or not. I'm going to replace it with the old one. It's okay. You can see the endpoint is working successfully. Okay, that's pretty much about this session. Rusiru, do you have anything to add? Actually, we put the feedback form in the chat box. So if you have any like recommendation or like positive or negative feedbacks about the session, you can fill it in that form. So yes.
Yeah.
Rusiru,
So for last thing, I wanted to clarify that the change that most of the people confuse, like that producing and consuming code. So let me show you.
Are you going to share?
Yeah, I'm currently sharing. So guys, if those who are wondering what is this consuming and producing code, so in our this is our backend application for MS Club. So in our code, this is the database connection establishment. So here you can see we try to connect to our database, right? So connecting to a database, sometimes it can be take some times little bit of time because our database is hosted. So then it can be it will take some time. Then this is the producing code, right? This is the producing code, and in here you can see we have a then block, then function and catch function. So these are the consuming code. So these two functions will wait until something return from the database connection, right? If it is a success connection, it will execute this then function. If it is a error connection, let's say it throws an exception, so it will execute this catch function. So then this is the consuming function, consuming code. This is the producing code. So that's the only difference, right? That's it. And yeah, this is okay. This is and also guys, we actually provide you the bare minimum application. So when it comes to production level applications, so it can be really hard because in our organizations also 20 plus contributors, developers actually parallelly contributing. So managing project is another story, right? So yeah, this is our application, right? So that's pretty much it. You can access this, you can go to our organization, and this is our hosted URL. So you can test by your own. So that's all about it.
Yes. Okay, if you have any questions, you can put it in the Q&A and we will be answering for those questions. And in the meantime, please please fill the feedback form.
Yeah.
Yes. I think no questions, right?
Yeah, all the questions I guess answered. So
okay.
Anyway, guys, if you have any questions, just
actually
contact us.
What I want to mention is this is only a CRUD, right? So apart from that, to your projects, please use apart from use something apart from CRUD, if you can use face authentication one, if you can use natural language processing. You no need to know machine learning or something like that. You can easily, I think for the SLIIT email, you can access to Azure portal. So in there we have like lot of cognitive services. So computer vision, then like computer vision, Azure App Service. Then we have Azure ML Studio, and yeah, lot of things. So you can refer those things and you can add those things to your project. Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
Shivani or Nuduja?
Yeah, you can wind up the session.
Wind up the session.
Yeah.
Nuduja.
Thank you all of you, Senura and Rusiru, for that very informative session. I know that I speak for all the participants when I say this, that in today's session, we learned a lot and we got a good understanding of the basics of JavaScript and how to make a backend with MERN. We all wish you all the very best in your future endeavors. Thank you again for your valuable time and effort. And next, I'd like to thank all who supported in organizing this event and making this event a success. Finally, I'd like to thank all the participants who took time out of their busy schedule to take part in this event. Tune into MS Club YouTube channel and our social media pages for upcoming events. Stay safe and have a good day.